it was also an anti-press riot, as I mentioned, and the two leading pro-Lincoln papers are sitting just south of City Hall Park. It's called Newspaper Row. And here you see a crowd being dispersed. So crowds menaced the New York Times and the New York Tribune. Both newspapers armed themselves. Henry Raymond, the founder of the Times, was on the roof of his building with his investor, Leonard Jerome. And if that name sounds familiar, he had a 9-year-old daughter named Jenny, who was destined to be the mother of Winston Churchill. But Leonard Jerome and Henry Raymond were on the roof of the Times with a Gatling gun, aiming it at protesters who were threatening the paper. It was a new building. The New York Tribune armed itself with munitions and grenades from the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And eventually this mob, and you see that some of the caricatures are, blatantly anti-Irish caricatures. Eventually they did crash through the downstairs rooms of the Tribune, which were reserved for buying subscriptions and papers and ads. And they set fire to this room. It was called the counting room. And then an army of New York police came out of the darkness down from City Hall Park south and attacked the mob and dispersed them. So the attempt to interfere with progressive newspapers was blatant also. And this is just one of the scenes that took place in July. And but as you point out, it ended only. By the way, it was a male and female riot. Women mostly dug cobblestones out of the pavements and then gave it to their men to hurl through the streets. And this went on down the Lower West Side. 59th Street, there was a lot of rioting across 59th Street. Central Park was being built then. So ultimately, Abraham Lincoln, who was totally silent on this, the governor was sort of friendly to the rioters. He called them my friends. But ultimately, Lincoln authorized the deployment of, and this is going to sound eerily familiar again, the deployment of federal troops who were dispatched from the Gettysburg area north on trains, and they ultimately fired their weapons downtown, and that ended the riot.